Time to get stuck in, lad. We have the first ever WAAAGH Tactics After Action Report. So what this is somewhat like a bat rep instead of it being live footage and everything. We have some pictures of what the game was actually happening and going on. So I'll be giving you my firsthand accounts and explanations of what I was thinking, what was going on with the mission, what we were doing. Of course, we'll break down the lists. And so much more. So, of course, for this after action report, it is starting with the members live. So, thank you very much to the members. And we start. So, the missions was J on obviously GW mission pack. We have terrain layout 6. The deployment is search and destroy, and the World Eaters player ended up going first in this specific matchup. Okay, but let's actually talk about where stuff deployed, the list, and what was going on with the reserves. So right off the bat, if you want to know what I was going into, I was fighting Demon Kin. So this player was going to a GT. They were specifically teching to fight against Knights. They had some reps with this. They ended up going 4-1 at the event, but they did adjust this list after our games and such. So what he ended up having was a Bloodthirster, a Demon Prince on foot, Master of Executions. He had 2 Hellbrutes, and what's special about the World Eaters Hellbrutes is that they get to fight again if they're fought, so they have that continuous fight ability, meaning that they'll fight, then when you hit them back, they get to fight again. Okay, and then let's say they kill that unit, and then they pile in, or then they consolidate into another unit. Once that unit hits them, they get to hit again. So it's a chain reaction, which can be problematic for Orcs because you're not really that durable. So you had 2 of those. One of those was also in reserves alongside his 2 Bloodletter units. He had 2 of the World Eaters Cultists. He had a unit of the Bloodhounds. He had 1 big Knight Lancer. He really liked the Knights for killing other Knights and has a built-in 4-up invuln. And then he had the Scarbrand as well, which he had in Deep Strike as well. For the Orcs, we had a unit of Killicans in reserves. We had a Gorkanaut, Morkanaut, Stampa, 50 Gretchen, so 5 small minimum-sized units of Gretchen alongside their run herders, 1 bike unit, and that was the entire list, and 3 baby mechs, and that was the entire list. No Zagra, anything like that. If you've actually seen this list, I've previewed it. It was where Stampa ended up doing well in the event. He had 3 knots. I don't own 3 knots, so I substituted in some grots in. I ended up breaking up some extra points for the bikers, and boom, I ended up having a biker instead of the 6 grot unit. So very similar to that. I wanted to give it a run and show you guys I would have played it and how it possibly could be played, so you guys can possibly replicate it. What you see on screen is where we ended up deploying. The World Eaters player did go first. He did have scouting, so he ended up scouting his Chaos Spawn forward into the middle, and you're going to see what he ends up doing with them once we actually show off the turn. So we're going to do this turn by turn from this point on, but I actually have the paint pen here so I can point some things out in case you guys aren't sure. I do end up having the bikers up in this corner right here. And they're looking so they can actually move on to be my natural expansion objective. I did put Gretchen in each one of the walkers, and then I have 1 Gretchen unit in the backfield in my deployment zone. The idea here is that this Gorkanaut is going to somewhat be able to walk up and harass this enemy objective and interact with this Demon Prince, or he would come and actually support the middle. He could go either way from here. What I would say is going forward, what I took from this game as well is that I know, and we all know, that if you're playing a lot of big stompy stuff or elite stuff, you should be relatively close to each other. And I learned that in this game, as you're going to see what else happens. But here, the idea of the Gorkanaut was that he would be kind of more the aggressor, and he's going to throw the Grots out because I really wanted to get Grots to come out early and play with this game. So let's go over what my thoughts were once I actually ended up knowing who was going first, what my plan with attack was, and what I learned once I actually looked at his deployment and what knew his army could do. Because, at that point, that's when you start activating your plan, once you really know what the enemy can do, once you kind of see where everything's in place for the most part. So now we're going to talk about that, and then we'll go through the pictures round by round of what was happening. So I understood it was Demonkin, so they had the uppy-downy mechanics. They had Bloodletter shenanigans. So if you look at the Bloodletters stratagem, it has been changed this recently, but when the last model of a unit is killed at any phase, you can bring in a 10-man unit of Bloodletters. Now you have to be 9 inches away from enemy models, but at the time of this game, you didn't have to do that. It was like a day before it changed. So the Bloodletters can come in anywhere, and you're going to see how he uses that. Really annoying for primary and for dealing with screening. And his units were really, really tuned and able to just wreck my Titanic models. Once I understood what he had and what he was dealing with, his Demon Prince or World Eater's Demon Prince, when he gives Twin Link to him and such, you know, we rolled it out. We looked at the math. He can one-shot a Gorkanaut or a Morkanaut. The obviously Knight Lancer can absolutely one-shot a Stampa or any of the Titanic Walkers. The Bloodthirster and Scarbrand can obviously both crack back on any of those. A Hellbrute can accidentally punch up and really damage them or continuously hurt them a lot. So you had a lot of things that could really hurt me when and a lot of the times you're really hoping for like the back end of someone's army can't do anything to you, but anything could either chip my Titanic units or they could straight outright kill them. But I was thinking about, okay, what am I going to do for scoring here? What I understood was that, one, I went second, so I had bottom of turn. So I had to keep some Grots alive so that I could stand on some objectives and get primary that way, because I knew I didn't want to be too aggressive early with my Titanic guys to hold the primary, and so I might end up falling back or staying about even with my opponent there. So I knew going second, keeping stuff alive, keeping some Grots preserved, but I knew my Grots also needed to go forward, and I needed my mechs to do actions and my bikers to do actions. As for board control, I understood that one, Stampa is board control himself. Wherever you're positioning him, knowing that he could go to different lines of fire on certain buildings, as you're going to see when we look at where he's at and what I do with him on my other pictures, those were my controlled firing lanes. And then as for my Gretchen, I knew that I needed to take up space to deny his deep strike reserves, his charges, his pressure, his continual fighting from his Hellbrutes. So Grots needed to absolutely go forward and take the fight to the middle of the table to draw on some of his assets. And then I knew that I had my cans unit to act as a QRF. So if you're familiar with the term, it's usually used in the military. It's quick response force. So sometimes people have their set where I'm going to put this every game on this deployment unit and deep strike. No, on this, it was a responsive unit. Killicans were, well, because my guys are so big and stompy, I'm not really going to know where I'm going to need them to go necessarily. There was we'll talk about where I thought I almost brought them in, and then I'll tell you where I actually did bring them in as we go through this. And then I knew the win conditions were straight up one, not getting my Titanic destroyed early. That sounds obvious, but it's easier said than done. But I needed the space for that, right? And that's where the Grots come into play and drawing out his assets. And that's where what I did for my turn one comes into play. So let's move into Orks turn one. So he had come forward. Once he had his turn one already. I could have showed a slide for his turn one, but his turn one was pretty simple. He ended up just getting engaged on all fronts, and he wanted to come over and stop me from being able to touch terrain pieces and take up table space, and he wanted to move block me. So he took his Chaos Spawn and he just moved right in front of my Gorkanaut, and that actually did suck because I'll pull up the pen here real quick. I couldn't fit, based off how fat the Gork's base is, through this gap anymore, right? And the idea was, well, I could just drop those guys off and he could come touch this terrain, or he can move back and assist with the Mork, or he could run out and kind of deal with this in a certain way if I wanted to. But now they're just standing in a dumb way, and I didn't really like that. So I disembarked all my Grots out of him, and they created this wall screen that you see here, all those Grots that came out. So I decided to throw my Grots forward. Then I took another unit out of my Morkanaut, and I threw these Grots forward as well, just throwing them onto the middle objective because I had drawn area denial and marked for death. So when I started doing that, I was looking at everything, and I was like, well, am I going to score area denial and marked for death, or only score one of these? These are two big 5-point secondaries. They're big, and we know about challenger cards and how they can be annoying and problematic. So this was a conundrum, right? A lot of the times you're like, well, I'll just score 5, keep it on that, perfect, you don't get a challenger card. That was something that I did consider, but what I considered more is that I wanted points because I knew I had bottom turn, and I knew I wasn't going to be too hyper aggressive with the primary early, and I knew that I was going to lose a lot of Grots in some of these scoring units in this turn and kind of early in the game, and be really concise to the mid table. So I'm going to have a hard time scoring anyways. So I just gambled it. I know in some matchups and some games I would just stick with one of these secondaries, but what caught me off guard with the opponent as well, which was smart from him, is that he was weird, maybe smart, maybe not, but he chose both of these frontline units to be his marked for death targets. So so that I had to score 5 off them. Right, because if it would have been my beta target, he would have been like, "Oh, you got less points." I still would have got challenger, but that's why I was like, I don't know if that was worth it. But he was forcing the score up so he could be forever the challenger. So that was his idea and what he wanted to do there. But when he's moving up, as for his movement, he simply moved this Knight Lancer. I got my little pen still, right? Yeah. This Knight Lancer, he simply moved it here behind the terrain piece to not get shot from the Stampa. This guy has Lone Op, the ground Demon Prince, as long as he's within an infantry unit. So here's his Mastery of Executions that he likes to run on his own. And he uses that so he doesn't need a whole unit for this list. And he could still get the Lone Op from that guy. So kind of funny that he did that. I had an idea he was going to do that. That's why I had the Gorkanaut even on this side of the battlefield. And then he staged up his Hellbrutes, and he staged up, his little, that's how I call the Hellbrute, his Hellhounds and his Brute. As for me, I moved as you normally do to your natural expansion. Pooped out some some Grots, advanced that way, got a big advance, got my Bikers out. But as we move on to what this actually ended up looking like for my turn, right? Oops. I went to turn over to, so I scored my secondaries. I pick up all these little screens right in front of me, and now my Grots are in the way. So we move over to the World Eater's turn 2. And at this point, he has picked up Assassinate and Cleanse as his secondaries. So not great secondaries for him either. And so this is his end of his movement, or near the end of his movement, somewhere in the middle of his movement. Like I said, I have multiple pictures because one of them is from a big tripod that I have over the table, kind of. That's why the quality is kind of weird, so allow me to improve on that. And then this was from my phone, so I'll make sure to take more pictures from my phone going forward. But yeah, so this is where he ended up coming to move forward here. The idea is, I knew that his Demon Prince, people love to use their Demon Prince Lone Op so that you have to force them to get close to him. So I wanted to force the Demon Prince to stay further away from me. And what this ended up doing by throwing all these Grots forward was to create this space to stop this space right here. So he ended up pulling a challenger card where you can go through buildings and such, and his Hellbrute just straight ran through this terrain piece. And when his Hellbrute ran through that terrain piece, this blue Grot unit ended up reactive moving 6 off the objective, because I'm not trying to give him, killing free units on objectives. Even I knew what his card was in general. It's a good thought for the future if you guys are playing this list. And 2, I wanted to fill up more space. So when I ended up moving my Grots forward and this unit forward, it made it so this big Knight Crastus couldn't fit here anymore, right? Because he would be within an inch of this unit, and such like that. So because my Grots were so far forward, this Knight Crastus ended up not having, Lancer, had no idea where he was going to end up anymore, which really messed up my opponent's turn. And when I did the conniving grunt stratagem for reactive moving, I ended up dropping a big whopping 4 mortal wounds onto this Hellbrute in the mid table. So why I also reactive moved these Hellbrutes forward these Grots forward was because if this Hellbrute had made the charge into their prior position where they were on the field, he could have possibly consolidated into my Morkanaut. So let me show here. So the reason what I'm speaking of here, pulling back my turn 1 picture if you're following on screen, is if his Hellbrute would have made a charge onto these Grots right here, he could have 6-inch consolidated into this Morkanaut and ended up punching the Morkanaut as well, and then getting a continual fight with him and getting stuck in combat with him. Or just hurting him, right? But nonetheless, he wanted to do that, and I just wanted to stay pushing him further back. So that's how you use the reactive move. That's what you really have in mind a lot of the time when I talk about this stratagem. So these Grots moved forward. They made a space, made me some breathing room so he wouldn't get touched, and he ended up doing some mortal wounds on there. And they stopped the Lancer from fitting in place. So these 2 Gretchen units just jumping out, advancing, running forward turn 1 to create space so the enemy couldn't walk exactly specifically where they wouldn't want to, ended up being a huge factor that I really appreciate. The enemy himself said, like, neither of us really foresaw like that it was exactly happening like that, but once he tried to move him and fit in space here, that's when he knew the Knight didn't fit there anymore, and that was a big deal. So with that being said, let me see here. So the Knight Lancer couldn't fit running through that building, and then we have, let me look here. Actually, is the paint thing coming up for you guys? It is, right? Let me make sure the paint marker is coming up for you guys as I continue, because I just gave it a peep and I'm thinking it might not have popped out even though I was setting it up. Let me see what this is. Let me bring it back to me, you get. Okay. So make sure everybody can see everything. There we go. Oh, okay. I think I had messed that up. Luckily, we still have it on the screen. Sorry, guys. That's why we did it for the members first, because I thought it was all up, and now I'm looking and it wasn't. So, boom. Thank you guys. Thank you for letting me know. Actually, I noticed. So here we go. Now I can see the pen. Excuse me. Ooh, that's annoying. All right. So sorry, upset. That was a long time of me being stupid. All right. So what I was speaking of is that this blue Gretchen, this blue Gretchen unit ended up making a reactive move. And this reactive move stopped this big Knight Lancer from running through, Kool-Aiding Man through that building and fitting right there. So the fact that all these grots filled up this space made it so that Knight Lancer couldn't fit here, and then that Knight Lancer would have been able to charge off into my Morkanot. It also helped it so this guy couldn't fully move or get into my Morkanot either. I was Gorkanot, excuse me. So I was creating space for that. Now on the other side of the battlefield, though, where things started to look hot, which isn't exactly good considering that's supposed to be my natural expansion. So one thing was that I also thought about when my deployment was, I was so focused on harassing him that I didn't think about my natural, and my Morkanot could have moved further into that gap instead, right? And that's where I ended up paying for it in this turn, where I could have been moving into this gap and kind of worked my way around and still played with my own objective and held it. Instead, I just went forward, my Morkanot being so forward aggressive, which meant that I had Gretchen behind here and I had these bikers move up here. But the World Eaters player dropped in this Hellbrew. So this Hellbrew was getting ready to line up a 9-inch charge. And spoiler alert, he made that 9-inch charge. So that Hellbrew ends up getting a 9-inch charge into my Gretchen that are behind that little terrain piece. Then from there, he gets a 6-inch consolidate into my biker unit for the future of what's going to come. But I had something in the back pocket to respond to that. Okay? So then we move on to the start of my turn. So what had happened here was after he had killed those Gretchen that were in front of him with that Demon Prince on this left side. Oop, I'm pressing the screen way too much, guys. Sorry. Getting too excited here. After he had killed the Gretchen that were screening him initially, he decided to consolidate 6 inches because remember, he had a 6-inch consolidate, which was really catching me a little off guard on this. For the picture on the left is when I started my movement, and the picture on the right is at the end of my movement for those who are watching. So the picture on the left, you see that he ended up consolidating into my Gorkanot, which was not something I had planned for and not something I wanted. And when I punched him back, I did absolutely 0 damage to his Demon Prince with my Gorkanot, which that sucked. Even though he had +1 to hit, he just did nothing. With sustain, he did nothing. So he had set up this Knight Lancer to move up behind that building safer. And as for what happened for what the end of his turn is, these bloodletters had come in from the Gretchen. So when the Gretchen got killed, he did his bloodletter stratagem, which the bloodletter stratagem allowed them to just come in 9 inches away. So he made a big old wall in front of my Morkanot, so I couldn't move my Morkanot forward. So now he has his own wall, and he's taking that mid-table space that I had originally spoken of to you guys before. Right? Now, also, here we have the Hellbrood in the corner that had occupied that space, killed all my stuff, turned off my primary objective. That absolutely sucked. As for my round 2, I had picked up Engage on all fronts and Extend Battle Lines. So I had gotten Baby Engage, which wasn't great because I would rather have CP for that, but I did get Extend Battle Lines. So I ended up using a CP to rapid ingress these Gretchen in during his movement phase once I realized his Hellbrute was about to do to me, or possibly do to me, and he ended up doing. So they used my Killicans as a QRF, and they still just ended up coming into my deployment zone. Wasn't really that exciting, but hey, it is what it is. At least I had a response for it, so I was going to work with it. Now, at the end of my movement, you can see on the right side what I had to do is I ended up falling back with my Gorkanot. Now that was a big if for me. I knew that I could stay in combat with him. I could shoot out at the bloodthirsters on the little bloodletters, excuse me, on the middle of the objective. That's what he's there for. He's there to clear screens and do skirmishes because his volume of shots, he's there to pick up all these units that are in the middle. But since he got tagged, he's not picking up all the units in the middle. Right, his initial plan was to come up here, but the enemy pinned me with the spawn, and then he came up with the Demon Prince. So he was stopping me. Right, I'm just pointing that out. That's something you have to consider with your Titanic models. And I was so excited to move forward to take space that I let him get tagged up. I decided to fall back because I was going to use my Stampa to actually shoot that git, and I decided I was just going to give up his shooting and allow myself to just pick up everything in the mid table between my cans, my Stampa, and my Morkanot. So that was unfortunate, but it is what it is. That's what I was like. This is what I this is what I got to do now. Oh well. And I believe this is also when this is when I called the WAAAGH as well. Because I was ready for that 5-up info to kind of have to tank it on my unit, since I knew after I pick up all these assets, he was going to have to bring in his big guns. So on the right side, you can see that once I fell back, I actually took this picture after I already shot my first turn, so sorry about that. But his Hellbrute that was standing here in the corner, I used 1 CP on my Killican so I can use Assault, so I could advance, shoot, and charge them. I rolled a big advance, so I moved that big unit to the front as I was looking like I'm going to just simply charge that unit of Hellhounds here on the right with my Killicans. So I ended up, so in this, I knew that I had a bunch of targets, and I felt pretty confident I can kill them all, but now it came down to how I was going to kill them all. And this is where my CP management and what I could actually do here was a big factor. So, and my Gork getting touched was a big factor. So in this case, I ended up using the Gatling gun to pick up the bloodletters best I could, and I used his big launcher, his big def cannon of the Stampa to shoot this Demon Prince that was directly in front of me. Now, funny enough, I didn't use reroll hits. I was like, I could just kill these guys because I really need my Killicans to kill this Hellbrute over here, and I don't want to charge backwards into him. I want to charge forward into these dudes. So I'm going to use my reroll hits, use my rockets, and try to kill this guy or diminish him greatly, where I can multi-charge and possibly finish him off with like the back end 3 cans or 2 cans, right? So that's what I did, and I ended up shooting, and I killed the Hellbrute with the cans by re-rolling hits. Awesome, lovely, felt good. I got a little too zealous to my Orc players, just so you guys know, and I did roll the data sheet ability. Oh my god, like I even advise you guys not to do. And like I said, sometimes I make the mistakes that I tell you guys not to do because I'm just an Orc player too. And I ended up, because I wanted either an additional shot or additional strength because the Hellbrute was going to be getting cover from my cans shooting at him. So I was like, I need to offset these wounding odds here. And I rolled it. I ended up blowing myself up, which happens before you shoot. So I blew up one of my whole Killican models, which sucked so bad. I was so disappointed. But hey, it is what it is when you gamble. So killed him. And then I ended up using my Stampas to kill all these bloodletters, charge off, and you're going to see in the next picture that I show, charge off and charge into that dude. And then I used my Morkanaut to pick up both these guys actually. So because my Stampa whiffed, I ended up shooting my Morkanaut into both of these guys, I believe. Oh no, his Mega Cannon. I don't remember if it was Mega Cannon or something, but I ended up barely finishing off this Demon Prince with my Morkanaut after my Stampa whiffed into killing him. Was a big deal. I was very proud of my Morkanaut. My Morkanaut made me very proud this game and surprised me. But just to say, what was showing here, as you can see, is after my movement, he brought in Skarbrand. So he was ready to bring in Skarbrand because, like I said, turn 3 he was ready to fight. I preemptively thought about that. That's why I wad, and here we are. Skarbrand's making his way on the field. So that's my turn where I was going with my turn 2. And the next picture you can see at the end of my turn 2 how things kind of looked out here. So near the end of my turn 2, I picked up all the bloodletters and the Demon Prince, picked all that stuff up. The Killicans didn't finish off these hounds, to be honest, which was silly. And then Skarbrand was sitting there ready to play, ready to get in attack. So now I know that the Lancer's coming forward, the Bloodthirster's probably coming forward, and Skarbrand's coming forward. I know at least 2 of these 3 big guys are coming forward, and I'm ready for it. Now, where I fell back with this Morkanaut was intentionally thought of because I want this knight to be in a position where I'm absolutely going to be able to shoot him without cover at all. With my Stampa, and I want to make sure I could just put every shot on him even without cover, because the Gatling cannon is way better when you have no cover, and I want him to be close enough so I can potentially charge him. So I was like, you're gonna have to be close. This is why I'm gonna keep the Gorkanaut in play where my Stampa can kill you and we can get an exchange going here. So then we move into World Eater's turn 3. At the end of that turn, I had scored engage battle lines and extend battle lines and engage on all fronts for 1 point. And he had scored a cleanse, which he had gotten with the Bloodletters unit. So, and he had done with his Master of Executions that he's using in that bottom corner. Then I move on to turn 3, and he ends up getting Bring It Down and Extend Battle Lines, which is what he wants because he's ready to get stuck in. So he comes forward, pretty straightforward. He makes his charges. As you can see, after that rapid ingress on the left side, he decides to actually plant Angron. Oh, where's my little thing go? Here it is. He decides to actually plant Angron right here. Oops, did I just? Oh yeah, I moved to the Orc turn too. Sorry, guys. Sorry. There we go. So on turn 3, Angron moves and he decides to charge and fit right in this little gap. So I did think maybe he would come this way, try to get an objective. Maybe he'll try to come around the building and try to stand on that. No, he was already in thinking ahead, and he was thinking, I'm going to touch this dude again. So he's just thinking about touching and shutting my stuff down. Lancer makes an easy charge into my Gorkanaut. The Gorkanaut and Lancers got beef. They got beef for several games where I fought Imperial ones, Chaos ones, everything. So far, my boy is like 0-4 into Lancers. But hey, he be winning a lot of other fights. So it's all good. But just saying, I mean, you guys let me know what's going on with your lore if you keep track of your models like that. You know I do. So on the right side of the screen, you can see now after the fights actually occur, he kills my Gorkanaut. He's gone. Gorkanaut's gone. But he didn't kill all of my Killicans, which was a big deal. So he didn't kill all my Killicans. And I ended up having one left because they had their 5-up invulns and such. And now he did get into not base, but within an inch of my Morkanaut. So to consolidate at the end of that, which is what he chose to do at the end of his turn to consolidate into him. But now you see the knight is standing right there in the open, no cover, no nothing. He's not so close that he's away from being charged from my Stampa if I want to, kind of. But now that I know Scarbrand's there, I end up going another way. So I end up going for the start of turn 3. So at the start of turn 3, I end up getting cleanse and sabotage. So you can see I move forward my baby mechs. I move forward the individual mech characters to start pulling secondaries. I'll point those out here on screen in a second. But on the left side of the screen, you can see that that's how my turn started. And on the right side is where I ended up at the end of my movement. And then the following slide will be the end of that turn. But I moved the baby mech forward to do the middle objective. I have another mech behind this terrain piece that's doing another secondary, and then I have that one on that objective doing that secondary as well. My one individual Killican did fail Battle Shock, but he moved forward because I knew these cultists were going to come forward. So I was making them kill him or interact with them, whatever he was going to do, try to get some baby shots off on Angron. But yeah, my mechs are moving up, starting to do secondaries like I pointed out earlier since I lost my bikes too early, and I still have this 2nd edition Gretchen unit holding my backfield. Mind you, I still have one Gretchen unit within my Stampa as well. All right. So now I move forward and I go, okay, I'm absolutely going to wreck this dude with my stratagems and just shoot away my boy and do big shells and reroll hits. So I pull all my 3 main guns into him. I don't end up using my Gatling into Scarbrand, which typically I would do into a demon, but I was so set on I'm going to have to shoot this guy and I'm going to punch Scarbrand and I'm going to one-shot him. Scarbrand has 20 wounds and I do 10 damage and I'm wounding him on 2s and I'm hitting him in on 2s. I'm like, I'm just going to kill this dude. All right. I'm just mathematically speaking, I should hit him 6 times. I should wound him 5 times, 6 times. And then he should fail half of those, and then 2 of those go through, and he's dead. So I was like, I'm just going to shoot the Lancer, and then I'm going to punch Scarbrand. Things are going to be chill. Just to make sure I did shoot Scarbrand with my Morkanaut, which ended up being a huge deal for the future as we're going to show what happens next. But then we move to the end of the Orc turns and how things kind of look. So the Lancer got utterly annihilated. He got cleaned off the field. And this is a better shot of where my models were so you can see where I was doing for scoring. So I have my boys sitting here doing a secondary. This guy here sitting doing a secondary and screening so the Bloodletter couldn't fit it. That's why you see these dice in the corner. So I'm still thinking about the Bloodthirster. So I'm still screening even up to the end of turn 3. I'm still screening because of the uppy downy shenanigans that I know are coming. And I know he's going to try to get a charge off on me with that. So he has his little Master of Execution holding that. And he still has a unit of Bloodletters that are ready to come in from reserve. So this is actually a big deal at turn 3. Now, when I shot the Lancer and I charged into Scarbrand, I end up whiffing. I did shoot more, like I said, with the Morkanaut and taking about 8 wounds off Scarbrand with my Morkanaut, which was great because I only got 1 wound through with my Stampa. And that was actually really upsetting for my opponent because he was hoping to do the Bloodletter shenanigans where he was hoping I would kill Scarbrand and then this 10-man unit of Bloodletters would end up appearing roughly right here and flipping this objective and possibly charging and killing both of these little individual mechs. So that would have been absolutely huge, and instead I just whiffed. So a little bit of luck, a little bit of like. I'm here for it though. My Stampa did only take a little bit of damage from Scarbrand because Scarbrand's like, whoa, you're actually pretty tough. Oh, you get. And I made some saves. So he didn't get hurt from Scarbrand. So they're stuck in a fight. It is what it is. And since it's the end of the turn and he started them in reserve, they actually, the last unit of Bloodletters just absolutely just gets disappeared off the map and dies. So that sucks for him. So right here, you can see this is pretty much the end of the game. And we're like, well, now it's up to the Bloodthirster to get this charge off on the Morkanaut and then see what he can do, and Scarbrand to fall back and flip that primary. So he was still trying to mess me up with the objectives and kill me. So that was pretty cool. Like I said, I had scored Sabotage. I got a small cleanse. And now at this point, I'm the challenger because he's, flipping my primary like I told you while I was going for secondaries. And I knew he could do Bloodletter shenanigans for my primary. So I had an idea going forward that this game was going to be someone like this, and being second was going to be a big deal. So on turn 4, he draws Storm Hostile and behind enemy lines, which you can't accomplish behind enemy lines, but you can do Storm Hostile. So he did it with Scarbrand. And then he attempts to charge and he fails it. Just going to say what it is. So at this point, game's pretty much wrapped up because if you're going to fail it, I'm fine. Morkanaut's full health. Stampa's 23 health. I'm going to clean this stuff up. So we're just going to go through real quick, Hansa, looking at the end of the game. So I get a Defend Stronghold and Storm Hostile objective. So as you can see, from how it goes, I end up finishing off Scarbrand with some just miscellaneous shots from everybody that would be able to shoot at him. The Stampa picked up the Bloodthirster, and then the Stampa just started moving forward with his assault and shoot stratagem because I did want to get onto that objective at the end of turn 5 so I can score that since it was linchpin, and I just wanted to take every single objective. So that was a huge deal. Morkanaut, of course, moved forward here to shoot this little dude and end up killing him, and that was great, and that was pretty much the end of the game. So I ended up with the Gretchen able to, this small unit that had offloaded from the Stampa ended up running onto that objective. So Gretchen held this one. My home ones were held by my homeboys. This little dude, Lonop, was standing, not Lonop, but the baby mech ended up standing there. This dude stand there, and then the Stampa ended the game there and just peeked over that building and picked up the cultists I were trying to stage up and make a last game attempt. So the game ended up being 65-46. Because I ended up on all of those. I ended up getting Display of Might, obviously very easily, and Established Locus. Some more secondaries here at the end of the game, and making a big swing from going second. So the takeaways were the grot trading space was huge. Initially, the opponent was like, man, you're throwing away a lot of your grots, like 30 grots away early, and you're really so low on assets. You really want to do that? And I was like, yeah, I absolutely need space. That was the right move. And then reactive moving with them was huge too. A mistake by me was getting the Gork stuck, not paying attention to him getting touched. The limited space he can actually fit and move. That he couldn't really participate and help and do anything in the game at all. And the Mork had to actually come in and save his butt. Now we have Knots versus the Cans, the actual list that you can find on the channel that we premiered that someone actually ended up going for and wanted to GT with, had 3 Knots in the Stampa. Now it goes Knots versus Cans, pros, cons. Would the Knots be better? Well, the Knots are just bigger, thicker boys that are, fit the play of T12 and the skew. But what I liked about Cans was that how they were a little bigger of a unit, I could spread them out as you've seen on the field. And when Scarbrand went into them, because they were such weird ablative wounds, he had to kill each individual one, and the guys that were left over were able to run around and still play the game. On top of the fact that the Cans, when the Stampa had no good targets because it was just a Demon Prince, which that's not a 3 CP worthy strategy, investment for the Stampa. The Cans felt like a solid investment for the CP to get an actual result from them instead of the Knots where, I can use reroll hits from like a Morkanaut and I just roll crappy amount of volume of shots, or my targets all have great armor saves with my Gorkanaut and it doesn't feel great, but Gorkanaut sometimes goes off when you do it too. So Gorkanaut feels good too, but I felt good with the Cans because re-rolling hits, and then I got to advance shoot and charge with them. So you've seen how much space they started my deployment zone. They picked up a Hellbrew. They charged into some Hellhounds. They took a big punch from Scarbrand, and then they kept chucking their way up the field. So that was pretty cool by them. Now, I would say for this list going forward, because this was played like 2 weeks ago, because I've been preparing to do after action reports and I was setting up other games and such like that. So tell me what you guys think about this. But I wanted to try this list because the video did good too, and I wanted to show you guys about it a little bit. Now, I think right now the meta is a little bit too much ready for anti-Titanic models, and they'll still be able to just clean these guys up. Like I said, just the Demon Prince himself with enough, buffing from the stratagems and his actual detachment rule, he could have one-shot a Gorkanaut or a Morkanaut. All those big demon dudes could, like I said at the beginning of the video. So I didn't like that nothing really felt that tough. And the real big factor was just the Stompa was hard carrying by controlling the battlefield, which I really liked. So I think you're still going to win games from it because how dominating he is when something gets exposed. Like, how reliable is it for anyone, Orks, let alone Orks or anyone, to just from range just look at the Knight Lancer with this 4-up invul and just be like, you're definitely dying this turn. No matter what you think, you're dying this turn because I'm using my stratagems. You're just dying. And that felt great because I knew that I was going to shoot him and move in the Scarbrand. So that was absolutely awesome that I got to shoot that getaway and then charge into Scarbrand and let get my Ork love going. And last thing to say is this future after action reports. Tell me what you guys would like to see. Give me some feedback and some criticism in the comments. Like I said, sorry about in the beginning, I didn't have the little pen ready to go like I could have. A little bit of fumbling here. I'll take better pictures. Like I said, if you guys want me to use like a grid of the actual deployment zone, I could do that as well and put little picture or diagrams in there too. I was doing that, but it started to look kind of clunky. I wasn't sure what would be better in your guys' eyes. So leave feedback. Let me know what you guys think. Of course, is for the members first and maybe only because I made so many mistakes in the beginning. So maybe members, but we'll be sure to do this more, and it will be general content for the public as well. So let me know what you guys think who are here or end up seeing this. It means a lot. And I want to know what lists, what archetypes, what factors you want me to point out, what things you want me to cover more, and so much detail that I could add to this. So I'm really excited to bring after action reports to you guys. It's a little bit longer than I think it was going to be, but yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed what that was. Of course, remember, we have our paint competition, so get stuck in that for this weekend. And that's all I got to say for our after action report today. So as you guys can see, I use a cookie sheet for my units. I absolutely do use a cookie sheet for my units. And I do have an unpainted Gretchen unit. But just so you guys know, it's because I'm trying to motivate myself to paint these guys. So I already have so many painted of the other dudes. So I kind of want to paint this second edition unit up and then use them from like my home field guys. So that'd be pretty cool too, right? Yeah. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate all those who get stuck in and are going to watch this. So after action reports for the future, I look forward to them. Hopefully I did a good enough job and I was excited to bring this to you. And I'll be getting ready to cook up more and be playing a game today as we speak. So with that being said, shout out to the chat. I see you guys. Don't worry, I'm reading you guys in chats like I've been reading it. Most of you guys giving me much love and support. I can see that. Thank you for the wall. Thank you for stopping in. Yeah, the markers were supposed to be there since the beginning, and I have to share entire screen fully, and this wasn't pulled in the normal way I present it, so it wasn't showing, and I was all excitedly pointing stuff out in the dummy, and I didn't show it well. So hopefully that doesn't ruin people's interest in the video, right? So yeah, that's why you have to make sure you leave a like and let people know it doesn't suck, hopefully, right? So one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa!